So here's your recap of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 23 in 3 minutes or less. So the chapter begins with Mitsuki clearing out a group of claw grimes and he's in sage mode, so we have to assume it was a fierce battle. Konohamaru eventually pulls up on the scene and gives Mitsuki a breakdown of everything that's happened since they part ways. He tells him that he was just about to be killed by Matsuri when Boruto showed up and saved the day like Superman. And just as they were able to secure the thorn bulb, that's when Jura pulled up and that's when things got a little bit crazy. Konohamaru was able to get away, which indicates that Jura is more worried about eliminating Boruto than saving his companion. And after hearing this, Mitsuki is ready to go back up Boruto, but Konohamaru says no, Boruto clearly has a plan, let's stick to ours because our mission is to secure the thorn bulb, which is what we've done. The point of view switches back to Jura and a very injured Boruto. Jura had fired one of his Bijou Bomb sniper shots at Boruto and just missed his vitals, but it's still a deep wound and is bleeding a lot. Jura then attempts to fire another one at Boruto, which Boruto easily dodges because of how telegraphed the Bijou Bomb is. And this is something Jura notices too, and he points it out. He says the biggest problem with this Bijou Bomb is that it's telegraphed. There's a big ass bomb that appears in front of his face when he's about to fire. So he starts to weigh his options. Maybe if I make it a shotgun type scatter shot that doesn't need as much charge up, or should I stick with the rifle long range type that I've been using so far? And without warning, he looks up and fires another one at Boruto. Boruto narrowly dodges this one as well, but it frees his sword from his scabbard. And with his offhand, he's able to secure the blade and sever his left leg off in the process. Now Jura sees this and says well played in that an unamused, condescending tone he tends to talk with. And the two engage in a heated back and forth where neither are really landing damaging blows, but obviously Jura has the advantage. Now Jura eventually catches Boruto off guard and lands several punches to the midsection. And as they continue battling, Boruto is really coming to the realization that he has no chance against him in terms of strength. Jura suddenly grabs Boruto's wrist, and this is where we see the preview that dropped a few days ago. Just as Jura is about to fire a point-blank Bijou Bomb, Boruto uses a single hand sign that activates Purple Lightning. And for the very first time, we see Jura completely caught off guard. I mean, we've seen him a little bit surprised, but this is the first time where he was like, dang, that was a good one. Now, despite catching Jura off guard, this seemed like more of a minor nuisance, and when you think about it, Jura is made from a tree, and trees are some of the best insulators in nature. So he's still able to fire off a volley of Bijou Bombs, and Boruto flies away to escape. He then throws a kunai back at Jura's direction, uses Flying Raijin to get virtually behind him, almost behind him, but not totally behind him. But just as he goes to draw his sword, Jura hits the sword out of his hand and he drops it again. And this time, Jura uses that opening to land a knee to the chin. And a vicious knee at that, one that sends Boruto flying back. The two take a brief reprieve from the fight and they kind of talk shit back and forth to each other. Boruto is clearly breathing heavy. I think the wound is really starting to get into him, and Jura says, your movements have become dull, and he starts laughing. And then Jura says, rather than attempting to land a tail beast bomb, it seems as though it would be faster to clobber you to death. And while this is happening, we get a brief point of view switch to Konohamaru and Mitsuki, who had just reached the point that Boruto wanted them to go to. And now that they've made it there, they have absolutely no clue as to why Boruto sent them there. The point of view switches back to the battle where Jura is clobbering Boruto to death. I mean, at this point, he's knocked him out the sky like twice and sent him back hurtling to the ground. And the second he thinks he has Boruto dead to rights, he tries to fire another tail beast bomb. That creates this massive explosion per usual, but somehow Boruto is still able to escape. That Boruto is still holding on. But at this point, Jura is not playing any games with him. He appears behind him the second he sees him and kicks him from his side, sending him back hurtling towards the earth. When the dust settles, it appears Boruto's on the verge of losing consciousness. The point of view switches to Ada, who is watching this ad hawker remotely. And she says, at this point, I can't watch it anymore. Boruto's gonna be killed. And she's talking to Kajin Koji, who is not responding at the moment. She repeats herself and says, Koji, are you even listening? But it looks like Koji is going through something. We see Koji holding his head like he's stressed or he's going through something. He's like, can you please silence yourself for a moment because it's coming, a renewal. And I think a better word for this would technically be update. Now, we learned several chapters ago that Kajin Koji has the ability to see multiple variations of potential futures. And it appears that he's getting an update of some of the possible futures that can come from the situation and scenarios that they are currently in. And in this scenario, he sees Jura holding his right eye as if he's been wounded. And then Koji mutters to himself, what is this? He's coming. And Ada says, what? Who's coming? Explain. But he says nothing. The point of view switches to Jura floating over Boruto. Looks like he's barely holding on to his consciousness. Jura says, oh, you're still breathing? You're tougher than I thought. I suppose this is much to be expected of an Otsutsuki. But to keep hold of your master's sword, even in your passed out state? This genuinely impresses Jura, and he says, at the very least, I'll end you in one ginormous blast. So he slowly begins to raise to the sky in order to fire one final Bijou blast, and something peculiar happens. Just as he's about to fire the blast that will end this storyline completely, a black rod is pushed through the back of his skull and through his eye socket. And as the point of view pans around, we see that person standing over him, stabbing him in the back of the skull, is none other than Kawaki. And Kawaki says, he's a real monster, all right. All this and he still ain't dead. And as he says this, he's still standing on the back of Jura with the rod pointing straight through his skull. And Ada, after seeing everything that just happened, says, "Koji, what's going on? Why is Kawaki there? Explain." And Koji says, 10 past renewal or update. It's been approximately 6 days since the last renewal. Then he thinks to himself, it's a development I'm just now seeing for the first time. Kawaki's arrival. Did Boruto tell Kawaki something? And while this is happening, we're showing Konohamaru and Mitsuki meeting up with Delta. And while this is going on, we're shown Delta meeting up with Konohamaru and Mitsuki in the location Boruto specified. And at this point, Jura is visibly agitated. He tries to swat back and get Kawaki off of him, but Kawaki just jumps back, pulls a rod from the back of his head, and fires more rods at him, impaling him directly. However, Jura pretty much shakes off these rods and attempts to fire back another Bijou bomb, which as per usual causes a massive explosion, but it appears that Boruto and Kawaki were able to survive this somehow. We weren't really shown how, but it's Kawaki and he's in the middle of a massive aura farm, so of course he isn't gonna get blown to smithereens. He turns to Boruto and say, "Hey bro, how long you gonna sleep?" And Boruto says, "You sure took your sweet time getting here." And Jura says, "I sense a power incomparable to the one I met previously." Before Kawaki turns his attention to Jura, he says, "Boruto, grit your teeth and brave the pain. If you end up going out of control, I'll kill you on the spot." And of course, he's talking about if Momoshiki ends up taking over his body because he loses consciousness. Boruto says, "Don't worry about me, bro. Just take care of Jura." And Kawaki says, "Come at me." And the chapter leaves off with the battle between Kawaki and Jura beginning. Now, this is another crazy chapter. Let me know in the comments, do you think Kawaki is going to be able to beat Jura? If not, how do you think next chapter is going to go? And before you leave this video, make sure you like it, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell.